Okay, so we are here to talk about the module Advanced Viz. What's it actually called?
Advanced Visual Design.
Advanced Visual Design, there we go.
Technically, I think the full name is Advanced Visual Design for Games.
Advanced Visual Design. There it is, in fact. We just switched that view. Matt, I'm going to ask you some questions about the module in the hope that it will help you guys to make a informed decision when making your option choices in second year. Thinking about final year, of course. So, can you describe the module in one sentence?
So, visual design is a module that's primary focus is to get you ready for industry by building a portfolio that demonstrates not only technical skill, but also artistic skills and theoretical knowledge of visual design principles.
Cool. Let's go with who's it for?
Anyone on the more artistic side of the process. Mm-hmm. For anyone that's a character artist, an environment artist, a prop artist, VFX. So if there's a word art in there, it probably applies. Even the more artistic designers, so those that maybe want to combine their design skills with building of art assets to go along with that design process. We've had everyone from, in the past, UI UX people that really like the interface side of things, to animators, to this year we've got David, who's more of a designer, so he's building a prototype to demonstrate his design skills and his producer sort of attributes.
If I can just pick on one thing you said there, you mentioned characters, and of course if somebody's done second year character animation, I guess one of their questions might be Advanced 3D and or Advanced Viz. So if they went Advanced 3D, there's the option of making a character. Advanced Viz, they could make another character, so they could end up with two characters as portfolio pieces.
Yeah, that would be the hope. If you're wanting to be a character artist, that you would basically build a portfolio out of multiple characters that show different disciplines. So if I was going to say what's the difference between Advanced 3D and Advanced Viz, if you're, let's say, a character artist, is that one of those you would focus maybe on the technical side of it. So Advanced 3D, you could say, I'm going to focus on topology. I'm going to focus on looking at UDIMs for building of a character. Whereas in the visual side, we might look at the more artistic approach to how do you get proportions correct? How do you look at the colour theory of character design and things like that?
That's a pretty obvious difference, I think. Let's talk about a typical session. So it's a studio delivery, isn't it? 2 hour studio. So what's a typical session like then?
It can vary from week to week, but we usually do it via a discussion. So we'll have different subjects that we want to discuss about week by week. So everything from pure design principles of what's an iterative pipeline, to how do you get yourself to stand out, how do you build a portfolio that makes you stand out from the crowd, to more specific subject ones. So if you are doing character, we might have a session where we talk about the anatomy of the face, or how do you get proportions correct. And then within those, we'll have a little bit of feedback going around, doing one-on-one critique. And throughout the year, we have sort of set critique weeks where we'll discuss as a class everyone's work, and we'll start bringing everybody in to discuss pros and cons. How do you improve things as a group?
That's good. I think we'll come back to examples of some of the students' work, because before we talk about some of the examples, I think it's worth a brief discussion of how they'll be assessed in the module. So this is, I guess, how they will be assessed, but also is it a single or multiple, and then roughly when do they submit?
Okay, so the submission point's at the end of the year, and it's a single submission, and that submission will usually consist of an artifact, which is either your character or your environment, prepared, ready for a portfolio, and there will be a sketchbook that comes along with that submission, which is not only what did you make, but actually what's more important, why did you make it? What did you learn in that process? What are the resources? What research did you do in terms of developing that portfolio piece?
It's an interesting differentiator for final year, I think, for all your modules. is the why, isn't it? Yeah. In first and second year, it's just build stuff. But by final year, it's why. What's the process?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it that way? So we've got a single 100% right at the end, with bits and bobs as we go.
Yeah, I think
Formative.
I think what's quite important about the way that it is assessed, the grading breakdown, is actually the product itself, like the character or the environment. It's actually a relatively small part of the grading criteria.
Yeah.
A lot of the marks come from the breakdown of the why and what were the influence is behind it.
Yeah, cool. So should we switch and have a quick look at some examples, I think?
Yeah, so I've just got a couple here from last year. We've got Jack, who was a character artist, did this sort of hand-painted character. But I think what's more important about this is, yes, it's a great portfolio piece, one that can go onto his ArtStation, but it's the way that it's been presented. And if we skip over to his sketchbook, which is just here, there is a very detailed breakdown of not only the character, but his development process, his influences, getting feedback not only from myself and his peers, but also going directly out to industry to get feedback, to looking at some of his reference points, looking at proportion, silhouetting, making sure that readability of height and form, all that go into how is a character read, and then actually going in and delving into, if you were to skip through this entire sketchbook, it goes into quite a lot of detail about finding resources of how to texture in the proper industry way for this style of character.
So it's not just I made a funky texture for a rusty arm, or a worn arm, but I use these techniques that are well recognised.
And then we've got Sam, who did a lot of prop work, from this helmet to some weapons. And what's actually quite interesting, yes, he's done some nice props and they've got some good topology, but his sketchbook again delves into getting the correct references, making sure that the bolts are the right thing, and then actually going one step further and saying, how do I present this stuff in an interesting way? So looking at catalogs and in industry, how would a weapons manufacturer sell a weapon to someone? So he had an entire deliverable at the back end, which was creating a fake brochure for a weapons company. So showing them off, pretending that it's different brands. How would they brand themselves differently to make themselves stand out? Sort of selling those. So he kind of had the idea of, if he was making weapons for Cyberpunk 2077, how would they be shown in game? So,
particularly when you think about, in a lot of games, you go into a shop to buy this stuff.
Yeah. So it's looking at branding as well as part of it.
Yeah. So if somebody was interested in, as you say, font and branding and colours, it's not just about building a model and texturing it.
No,
it's the bigger picture.
Yeah, it goes into that. And then Daniel, who is an environment artist, made this sort of bedroom, but you can see it's very cluttered, and actually going into detail about modelling individual parts, making them feel believable in a scene. But his research went into looking at different ways of rendering things, getting the right light balance in a scene, getting the colour balance correct, getting the materials and the textures of a room, and then actually going on to looking at photogrammetry to get like photogrammetry pizza, so it was on the ground so it looked like pizza that's been eaten. So it's not just build something pretty, it's tell us why you built something pretty and what's been important in that process.
Cool. Excellent. I think that answers everything for anybody thinking of doing advanced viz. Thank you very much, Matt.